So for our handsome Mr. T, I know Mom had mentioned working him a little bit outside. We are going to practice outdoor time, and we will, but as of right now, there's a lot of construction today, and there's a forklift out front, so it's a bit spooky, making some funny noises. So we'll probably end up doing more of it on Thursday. Two, for the very first day, I do like to warm them up inside the building, even if we're going to eventually touch base on skills outside. So remember that we do want to generalize some of these behaviors and get them comfortable understanding it in a softer setting first. And since this is his first day at Doggy Day School, I know that he and I have worked together with some privates, with Mom as well and Dad too. But I want Mr. T to kind of get cozy in the home front first, which is the classroom, and then move into the other environments. So just like we did a little earlier with some of the other babes, I like to practice getting my pups cozy in the situation with doing some find its with either some name recognition or some recalls. Or for example, also working a little bit where you're moving around and every time they reorient to your side, be it left or right, you feed for that. So for Mr. T, there are a couple little find its on the ground from earlier. Some of them he enjoys. I know that's a little bit of his kibble. A lot of times too, with your babes, if they're a little uncertain over something, I would recommend to have a trail mix of goodies. So I know we've discussed previously is think about your snacks as having different value, almost like your money has different denominations, sorry. So with money, just like with us, pennies on the hour would not be the greatest paycheck, but several $100s on the hour might be quite amazing. So when you're working with your babe, make sure that you assess the environment and the availability for learning in that bubble. If the environment is too stimulating, too overwhelming, or the babe has never really worked that skill quite yet, throwing it into a harder or more trying situation may not be conducive to changing your puppy's original response, which could be due to fear or excitement or overwhelmed scenarios. So I would recommend that when you're working on anything new for your pup is do it in a very easy but attainable environment. So that way you're creating a really nice big foundation. Where is you? There he is. Really nice big foundation for your babe to find it appealing to then bounce back to that skill in those trying or harder environments. So nice job. So as he's getting more comfortable, he's doing some of those find its from earlier with some of those kibble pieces from home. Right now I am having him earn some of his lunch as well. So Mom brought in some of his softer food that he enjoys for lunchtime. So for Mr. T, what I'm trying to do is anytime I start moving and he starts to reorient back to my side, I'm going to go ahead and capture those moments and go yes and feed him for that. Nice job. Beautiful. So we might do again, gorgeous little moment right there, feed. So if in the beginning you start practicing again without equipment, for some folks it's much easier because you're not thinking about where's my leash, where's the pup, where am I? So a lot of times starting this off in and around your home front could be the easiest. So that could be, again, working your puppy up and down your hallway, or maybe from the living room to kitchen zone, or whatever little configuration you have from one environment to another. Yes, beautiful. Good job. So again, we're just kind of working him back and forth around the environment. Yes. So this way, we're, again, creating a lot of really nice paychecks that are going right into that bank account, which is to be by your side and reorient. Nice. So if your babe is doing a really great job with some of these lovely loose leash walking moments, even without equipment, you can, of course, rotate through a few different skill sets. So I know, for example, Mr. Handsome has been doing a pretty good job with his lovely recalls. So, but you'd send a snack away and you could go, Teddy, come, and then feed the handsome man for that response. So I do tend to like to throw snacks out that are not of the same value. So if, let's say, your pup is having a really hard time with coming when called, I like to first toss out snacks that are not as high value. And then let's say, go, Teddy, come. And then have a higher value snack to give him for when he comes into your space. So we're, again, for the harder work, creating a better paycheck from his perspective. So obviously down the road, you're not going to be always feeding your lovely for every skill, but intermittent reinforcement or again, rotating through different things he finds appealing. So coming into your space and maybe instead of food, he'd play with you with a tuggy or the flirt pull, which I know he really enjoys. So view it again as using things that motivate him for creating behaviors. Now he's a little distracted off in the further part of the environment. I might go, Teddy, come. What a good boy. Nice job. So again, yes. And then feed for that lovely approach. What a smart man. Good job, sir. So you'll see that sometimes I also do what's called a jackpot. A jackpot is where you're feeding several little crumbs for your babe doing a skill that you really enjoyed. So jackpots create value in something that maybe they don't find quite as appealing. Or it creates a situation where it creates a lot of value to that behavior and can also change their feelings around the particular distractions. So if let's say this environment was really trying for Mr. Handsome, we may find that jackpotting him for coming to visit me versus smelling an odor is a great way to build up value in my space. So again, Teddy, come. And then we might go, yes, and we're going to feed him several little snacks. We're doing such a great job responding to that recall. So again, I might let him go get distracted in the environment in general. And then from there, see if I can work another little check-in. So as he's busying himself with those snacks on the floor, I might go, Teddy, come. Yes. If at some point your babe didn't respond, so let's say I said his name, I asked him for the C word to come when called, and nothing happens. You want to be careful that when you're practicing any behavior skill set, that you're setting your babe up for great success. So if, for example, going loose in the yard and you've got a nice big yard and there's so many good smells and different creatures, and that might be a really hard level of distraction for your babe, you may be able to set them up for greater success by going out on a long lead. So I know Mr. T does work a lot on his long training leash, which is, again, I think a 30-footer. So I do recommend to, if you know your babe is not going to do well, don't even bother asking. So if your babe noticed a turkey and they're long gone mentally or physically and they're just not able to handle that situation, I wouldn't go ahead and say the recall word over and over as it's losing its meaning. So remember that if your babe is unable to perform, I wouldn't keep harping at them because you're either going to confuse them or potentially start to make the word lose its meaning. Or the other option could be that your babe starts to think maybe it takes 15 to 30 recall cues to finally come when called. Yes, nice job. So even though I didn't call him, I would still be feeding him for any lovely approach into my bubble to create value, and checking in with the crazy snack lady is having a good response or rate of reinforcement for the handsome guy. So again, we're going to meander around through the environment. If let's say we're working on some loose leash walking, you could of course do this off gear or on gear in your home where it's safe. And you could then start to bring this out to the real world with a longer lead. So your pup could get distracted, and as they start to reorient to you, capture those moments where they're doing a really nice job. I would also recommend is when you're trying this outdoors, which we're going to do with him in a little bit, is you're going to want to practice getting him comfortable in a certain strip of the outdoor environment. And then from there, from being comfortable in, let's say, a 15 to 20 foot range zone, get him to start getting the chance to explore and smell the environment first, and then bounce back from that space. So if let's say your babe was really having a rough time because everywhere you're going is new or novel, the problem there is that they're constantly getting bombarded by that novelty and therefore having a hard time reining it back in because of the level of distraction. So I'd recommend to stick to a strip or a zone, yes, and then reinforce the little bits and pieces of the glimmer of the behavior you're looking for. If let's say every situation was well past his comfort range or past his ability, then we're always setting him up to think that maybe there is no other option than the failure or behavior he's working on. So failure doesn't mean like he's doing something where he's a bad boy, because again, dogs are amoral. But if let's say, for example, me squealing at him as he's running around the yard chasing squirrels means that my recall is now becoming less reliable, then we maybe don't want to set him up for that type of success where he's successful in failing, if that makes sense. So again, he's going to go grab a little drink of water because again, I mentioned there's the little water in the corner there. So from there, I might go, Teddy, come. because he was all done drinking. So I want to see if I can get his attention. He's like, lady, I'm still noticing some smells. So let's say I said his name in the recall, nothing happens. I'm going to go a little bit closer to the handsome guy, about half the distance, and go, Teddy, come. Yes. And then try to bring him roughly to the point in which I had originally maybe called him. If he found it really, really hard, I would still feed for the attempt of him coming into my space and making it seem valuable to even give it a try. Good job, sir. He's like, whoa, almost fell over while itching. That's very impressive. So again, we might do another little find it and then work again, a little recall. So Teddy, come. Yes, what a good boy. Nice job. So splendid job for Mr. Handsome. So when practicing some of these exercises, I know we've discussed it in the past when he's done some one-on-ones with me and you guys, is to make sure that when you're practicing, it's in a comfortable environment first. Try to get him to learn the skill set first and then try to generalize it to those different zones. But remember, nice job, Mr. T, is you're going to have to help him generalize the behaviors. And at times, you could be doing a simpler version than the appropriate sort of big boy skill for later. So if let's say, not pulling and walking right next to mom in a heel position is what we're hoping for, we may first start off with doing the breadcrumb trail through the environment to help him have it be attainable to go slow and not haul past us. So the breadcrumb trail, just for an example, is let's say my babe constantly wants to kind of blow past me and he's having a hard time. I like to take a few steps and then feed the floor. And then as we're meandering again, take a few steps and then feed the floor. So if it's hard to bend over, you can always just drop the snack right onto the ground and continue on your merry way. So you'd be wandering, having your puppy be somewhat near your leg or by your side, and drop the food. So this is, again, the breadcrumb trail, which helps your puppy start to, for example, if let's say they're a little overexcited or a little overwhelmed and their mouth starts to become harder, remember that a hard mouth tends to equal they're either overwhelmed, overtired, or not really super comfortable. So if the mouth is becoming a bit harder, obviously if you've got a very, very young puppy, it could be part of that mouthing and sort of those scenarios too, from those puppy teeth being uncomfortable. But if, let's say, when you're practicing, and one of our babes is like, guys, I really want to be all done with my nap. So sometimes they'll hear each other talking throughout the day a little bit here and there. But let's say, for example, he starts to jump and he's mouthing the leash and he's having a hard time. I would recommend sometimes the feeding the floor is a good way to get them to find value in going to the ground or staying low, and they're not trying to meet you halfway. So if, let's say, we're feeding here and he's jumping to grab the snack, he might be thinking that jumping is the right thing because that's where maybe the snack gets fed. So make sure for position-wise, you're feeding for the skill or the behavior you're looking for. But Mr. T did a very good job with some of these warm-ups, with doing a bit with those find its with some recalls. He says, hold on, lady, your pants smell amazing. So we might do another little find it. But when working with some of this practice at the home front, come, yes. You want to make sure, again, it's within his comfort range and attainable. And then we'll throw in more difficulty or novelty as he's doing well. That was really nice, Mr. T.